Hey, this is Vérité, and we're on A-Sides.
This sound, I want it to surround me. Play it loud, play it loud, play it loudly. A-sides, around we go. A-sides, let's play all night and here we go.
So, how's your summer?
My summer, it's like it's a both and. My summer has been good, and my summer has been strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's quarantine and also figuring out, I guess, how to exist now and what that looks like, and like relearning things. And so it's exciting, but also, yeah, just weird.
It's strange times and everything, but I want to obviously talk to you about New Limbs and everything you got going on. How how far into the pandemic did you start this? Because I didn't want to do shit, to be honest. The first couple of months, into the pandemic, and you must have gotten started pretty quickly. I want to say, getting started with this. So, talk to me a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think the beginning of quarantine, so I was on tour and my tour got canceled halfway through. We were halfway across the country, so it was kind of this like mad dash in a time where we didn't know if they were closing borders. There was no information. And I ended up in LA, and then my life actually imploded. And so I ended up like back at my parents' house in New York. Like a long-term relationship ended, lost, kind of where my home had been for the past few years. And so I just like had no floor. And I just started working. Like I think I know myself well enough that I had two directions to go in with no middle. It was either like I was going to do nothing and get like really weird and unhealthy and like I don't know, eat way too many pints of ice cream, like and much darker, or I was gonna like really be disciplined and get a regime going. And I got on a pretty rigorous work schedule where I would wake up, work, write. I did a few features, I did a few acoustic versions, and I really kept myself busy. And now that, what is it, August? I'm like, oh, I've accomplished something. So I feel like now I'm starting to recognize that I need to maybe rest a little bit and like find a balance. But it's been go, go, go since the beginning.
Did you have these songs like before, all of this stuff, or did you just kind of sit down and write?
I had two of the songs. So Best of Me was done, and basically in the version it is today, we just did a mix and master on that one. Save Up was written, but there was no production. So it's a song I've been sitting on since I think 2018, and it just hasn't found a place. And so we did production remotely on that via FaceTime, which is a very stressful method. But I also very calming. Like we figured out how to make it work. And then Younger Women and I'll Take the Blame were both written in isolation by me, and then I kind of produced them out as much as I could, and then I finished the production via FaceTime.
So, what's it like actually creating, you know, uh, I hate the term new normal uh, with a passion. um,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
like seriously, with a passion. I hate it, so I'm not going to use it. But like, what is it like, sitting down, writing? What is the process? Let me back up. Like, pre shit show. What was your process? Did you just like kind of sit down, write songs? Or is it everything different with you? Was this a gradual process this time out? Um, do you know what I'm saying? Like, did
Yeah.
it kind of flow for you, or was it kind of a struggle, kind of getting to it?
I think that for someone like me, who is, I mean, I can even look at myself in the months leading up to COVID. I was like ADHD. Constantly moving, constantly changing. I was really busy. I was traveling a lot. And like, I feel like my goals are this constant moving target. And so I think that pre COVID, right, there's always this expectation that you're going to go to LA to write and you're going to collaborate. And like, and those things are good. I'm not knocking collaboration, but you're kind of like experimenting. And I write a lot of bad songs with other people because it's really hard to find the right chemistry. And so what's interesting about taking it back to like isolation and COVID was it was actually refreshing because I just sat at the piano and it was just me. And I feel like it was the first time I had stopped moving in like a year.
Right.
And like I definitely was in like a hyper emotional state just because again life shattered, and so I kind of had nowhere to run. Right, usually you can distract yourself, you can go out, you can, I don't know, numb it, but I was like sitting in my parents loft that they rent out as an Airbnb, and I was just like, cool, I'm here, there's nowhere to go. And so I actually have all of the recordings for how, like, the entirety of the writing of Younger Women, and I'll take the blame. And it's just me sitting at the piano and fucking around, and then you hear one melody that's like made it into the final song, and then I continue to sing that melody, and then the chorus was different for a while, and then eventually the right chorus came. So it was this oddly organic process, and I sat and I wrote the full songs on piano. Then I took them into Ableton, produced them out, and that was experimental because me sitting at the helm of the computer in the session was new. I've been producing for a while, but usually there's someone else, actually manning the session. And so that was really interesting and a nice experiment. And I think I'm really happy with the result, and I'm excited to see like what it looks like moving forward, with remote collaboration or me just continuing to write solo.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, do your songs just kind of start at a piano and just you anyway, or not necessarily?
Usually the ones I release.
Yeah.
Like every once in a while, there'll be like a studio collaboration or a song that starts in a different way. But I would say like 90% of songs that are mine that you've heard the initial idea started out with me and a piano. And maybe I took the smallest version of that, like a verse idea into a session. But for the most part, it has to feel personal and it has to feel unique to me, and like for it to feel like it's mine. And that, like, I'm kind of chasing a feeling in that way. And so that's like the lowest standard of like what I need to continue a song for myself.
You had mentioned in isolation, and people say like, in quarantine, in isolation, whatever,
Yeah.
at home, whatever, trapped, whatever. I mean, you were in the midst of a tour. You had released an album last year. I mean, just kind of, if you could describe the feeling of, I mean, there's so much going on, and everything every day seems to be changing, unfortunately, for the worse, even though there's kind of like an underlining sense of optimism, subtle as it is. I mean, you should be on the road right now, right? I mean, like, or, maybe you're in between. I don't know. But like,
I would be, probably.
how has that been, dealing with like you're kind of forced to reflect on that, right? There's no crystal ball where we're going or where any of this is. You live for performing these songs live. Like, how has that been to deal with?
Oddly fine. I was joking with my manager probably like a month ago that I think how I've built and grown my career, right? It's been independently. It's been kind of us bootstrapping and figuring out how to build a project that's sustainable, that I get to maintain ownership and maintain control. And I just feel like the idea of hitting speed bumps and walls and getting blocked and things going wrong and not having the resources and assets to do X, and I don't know, the ground falling out from under you here, like that feels like a Tuesday for us. Like, and so navigating something like that is actually like, I want to say my comfort zone. It's almost better than if things are going well because I thrive in that kind of high stress, uncertain, like, we're going to make this work somehow um, place. And so I feel like I can't really focus on touring in the traditional sense because I don't really see when that's coming back realistically, especially if you look at like the landscape of the US. And so I feel like sitting and being sad about that, or sitting and, you know, feeling like, oh, I can't promote my music, and living in that space isn't productive. And so I think my goal is to try and find, well, what's going to replace that, right? What's next? What is realistic? What is productive? How can I connect with fans, you know, other than like the live stream, which I feel like we've all seen too many of.
Right. Or the Zoom music videos that we could do right now if you want. um,
We do need to figure out like what is next, because we could be in this for years. And so I think that's been my goal in wanting to be creative and viewing it as like a positive challenge versus something that's happening to me.
and I had mentioned before I hit record on this that I mean you're from Orange County, and I've spent my entire summer taking my kids to drive-ins. So this is really interesting to me
Yeah.
since there's wall-to-wall drive-ins in Orange County. Talk to me a little bit about this, about the not drive-in but drive-away.
The driveway concert. So when quarantine hit again, I had no idea what my next move was gonna be. Right, there was just a very clear sense that like I'm not going to continue living with my parents forever. But also there was a feeling of like, but what is safe? And like again, there was no information, and so I was trying to figure out a way to like connect with people. And so like I feel like the driveway concert came from this bigger idea that I had, where I was like gonna go to a cabin and like record the process of making a record. And it was this like big, big idea that wound up getting distilled down to this idea of, if I can't tour, like there has to be a way where I can bring people something, right? I'm not bringing people an entire concert, right? Um, but I am bringing them this intimate performance. I am bringing them hopefully some like positivity and like joy, and like I'm gonna bring them a mask, right? Because I make masks now, and like this idea of like, great, we're gonna connect and we're gonna eat some food and we're gonna talk about how COVID's affected me and how COVID's affected them, and I don't know, just talk and like level one on one, but from like 6 feet away. Also, it's just gotten so dark. There's a massive thunderstorm coming.
Oh, wow.
I noticed my whole light.
I did notice.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I think it's still fine, but if you hear a large,
No, it's fine. Let me know if it starts raining frogs, because that's the one thing it hasn't done this year.
like, we're just gonna experiment. Like that's how I view this. It's a whole experiment. It could fail. Regardless, we're going to document it. So if it fails, hopefully it'll be entertaining for you. But I do think it's this idea of like, you can be spontaneous, and you can be safe, right? And you can connect while, I don't know, maintaining a distance that makes everybody feel comfortable and good and doesn't get people sick. And so that's kind of what we're experimenting with. And I hope it goes really well. I think it will.
That's all I got. I think we're good.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time.
No, thank you. Stay safe, and
Yeah, you too. And maybe we'll run into each other at the drive-in.